once again back to college composition. We just finished talking about the planning stage inside a pre-writing process. And now we're going to look at why the plan or that outline looks the way it does. We're going to look at a body paragraph. What are the parts of the paragraph? Remember, we break things down. We want to go down to the most simple component and figure out how those parts work together and how they are connected. So the different levels of specificity that you'd have in a whole essay, we know we've got our thesis statement, right? And when we looked at our outlines, we know each one of those body paragraphs is going to have a topic sentence. And for that topic sentence, we're always going to have 2 to 3 supporting examples to back up that topic sentence. And then we're going to have 2 to 3 supporting details to back up each example. You can always look at an essay, and if you find a thesis that does not directly point back to the thesis, you know it doesn't need to be there. Well, you're asked, how does every sentence directly point back to the thesis? Well, it does so through this logic. Because the detail backs up the example backs up the topic sentence backs up the thesis. How does it work? Well, remember the example with the car accident? Remember talking about loving to drive? Well, thesis statement, the event made me hate to drive. The topic sentence is before the accident, I love to drive. The example is, I used to spend 10 hours in the car every day. And the detail could be, well, I went to school, I listened to the radio, I drove down to the strip. And that's how they would all be connected back to that thesis statement. But when we look at a paragraph, let's talk about these different levels and layers and really talk about how they're plugged in and where things can go. First, let's talk about the topic sentence. What is a topic sentence? I know we've all heard of one, so what is one? A lot of answers that I'm getting and that I usually get is it's a lot like the thesis statement. It is the point of, instead of the whole paper, the paragraph, the focus of the paragraph, the main idea of the paragraph. And it is. But knowing that, how do we know where to put it? Now, you can see in all of our examples for our outlines, we put it first. So let's talk about why we put it first as an example, and then we'll move on from there. Well, most of the times, you do want it first. And what are some of the reasons why you put your point up in the first sentence and paragraph? Well, to make sure your readers know what you're talking about. You don't want them to get lost and then have to try to figure out what you're saying or what you're talking about. You want them to know what it is. So that's the reason why we put the topic sentence first most of the time. But that's not the only place the topic sentence can go. Where are the other places it can go? One place is a few sentences in, 2, 3 sentences in. There's a lot of reasons for this. One of maybe the most simple reason is a transition. Maybe the point that was in the paragraph before this next paragraph is really different from that one, and you want to transition into that idea from one other. You don't want to strip the gears and go from left to right. Maybe you want to slowly move your audience into it, especially with argumentative writing. If you're trying to convince somebody of something, you already know they don't agree with you. So if the first sentence just smacks them in the head with why they're wrong, why do they need to read on? So again, easing them into it, transitioning them into it, that's another reason where you put the topic sentence a few sentences in. Now, think about this. You can also put the topic sentence as the last sentence in a paragraph. A lot of people are surprised by that. Why would I do that? And when would I do that? Why do you think you would put the topic sentence last? Well, suppose you're proposing some type of problem. Or some type of process in a paragraph. If it was math, you say 2 plus 2 is your paragraph and it equals 4. Do you need to tell them before you say 2 plus 2 that it equals 4? You need to say, look, I'm getting ready to ask you something and the answer is 4. I want you to know that just in case you can't figure it out. Then you say, what's 2 plus 2? Sometimes you don't want to do that. If you've got something that's coming in a process or a problem, maybe you want the audience or the reader to be able to come up with that answer on their own, or at least think they're coming up with their answer on their own. So as far as the pace of the essay, they're getting to that idea the same time that you would be as you're writing it. Now, granted, 9 times out of 10, and probably for every paper you write for this course, that topic sentence is going to come first, but we need to know that it can come in other places. Now, once we have a topic sentence, then we have sentences that back that up. Each paragraph needs at least 2 to 3 supporting examples to back it up. And each example needs at least 2 to 3 details to back up that example. This is a way that you can almost check your work in a paragraph to see if you have everything you need there. Sometimes people write paragraphs that are way too long. Well, what are some of the reasons my paragraphs could be too long? Well, one, maybe I've got a topic sentence with 40 examples and no level of detail. Or more likely, a lot of times people have a topic sentence, one example, and then they go off on the detail for a page. When really for the reader to understand what they're talking about, they only need a couple of examples or details. Then they create some more examples. Using the example that we used about the car accident. Okay, I used to love to drive before the car accident. I spent time in the car. I used the car all the time, and it was my favorite thing. Then you got details to back that up. And if you have enough details so that your reader can understand it, then that's enough. You don't need to give every little teeny detail if in the scope of what you're trying to say in that paragraph and the overall paper doesn't require it. And a good way to know that, remember we talked about getting other people's opinions, just let somebody read it. If they need more information, they will let you know. Now, so we have a topic sentence, and we have, maybe it's just an outline like this. How do I know what meat to put in that paragraph or in that outline? Usually this comes from free writing. The free writing you did maybe on what you listed, or if you know the structure of an essay, you free write a couple minutes on each one. That's where you can get the details and examples. And when using Word or some other word processor, you can move things around to see, is it a detail that backs up an example, or is it an example that backs up a topic sentence? This has a lot to do with logic. And remember, we're talking about deductive logic. This is a deductive type paragraph. It's one type of paragraph, but for now, this could be every body paragraph you write for college composition, definitely for the first paper. So to review a little bit, every paragraph has a topic sentence that directly supports that thesis statement. Every topic sentence needs at least 2 to 3 supporting examples to back it up, and every example needs at least 2 to 3 sentences to back up that example. People ask me all the time, how long should a paragraph be? It's the same answer as how long a sentence needs to be. It needs to be as long as it needs to be. But a good idea, especially in an essay that's 2 to 3 pages when you're seeking balance between your paragraphs, you're going to have at least 8 or 9 sentences at least to have a fully developed paragraph with enough examples to support your topic sentence and enough details to support each one of those examples. So that's a little bit about how a paragraph breaks down. You might be able to write these fluidly now, or you might not. If you do, go ahead and write those, and if something's wrong, this is a good way to check your work, if the paragraph isn't working right. And if you're somebody that can't come up with stuff for a paragraph, this is a good way to do that. Just try to come up with one piece at a time and then put them together to see how they work. So this is how paragraphs fit and how it shows you every sentence that points back to that thesis statement. I hope you will try to look at some of your paragraphs like this to see how it can help you check the paragraph to make sure it's developed enough, and it also just make you write better paragraphs in the future. Next time, we will talk about different types of outlines when we start looking at our papers. The first one we'll look at is the chain structure that we've been doing so that we'll all be on the same page. Some of the future ones will be compare-contrast essays, process analysis, and argumentative. But the next time we will be talking about different papers. I'll see you then.